Sun Yu's face instantly turned red after I kissed him. He didn't return to his senses for a moment, savoring the residual warmth I left on his lips. After I kissed Sang Knight, I pulled away from him. I swore my sovereignty with a blushing face. I kiss you. You'll be my person from now on. Now you still have the nerve to say, you're not related to me. At this moment, I was staring at Sang Yi with my own cute and dopey eyes wide open, looking at Sang Yi with deep emotion. This scene was completely seen by Frosty Cloud, who had his arms wrapped around his body and was in a very unhappy mood. But the way I played the rascal was very much in his style. When Frost Cloud heard me say that we can be family with a kiss, he directly raised his voice to stop it. If you can be family with a kiss, you don't even need me. He can do it too. Suddenly Bai Dai came behind me and has been helping me persuade Sang Knight to stay. Say, we've already accepted you as our family member. Sang Knight looked at us who had been retaining him. At this moment he had an indescribable feeling in his heart, and it was a care that he had never failed to experience before. I am also very much looking forward to Sun Yu staying and becoming our family. If we will encounter danger in the future, I hope the four of us will face it together. At this moment, Frost Cloud also felt that all of this was like a dream, so beautiful that he didn't dare to imagine that he would have a warm and harmonious family. At this moment, Sang Knight called out to me, and I looked at him with big watery eyes. I had been expecting him to give me an answer, but I didn't expect him to ask me if he would treat me like he did Bai Dai and Frost Cloud in the future. Hearing this, I felt my entire brain explode. My entire face was like a red apple as I coughed lightly, wanting to change the subject, but I didn't expect to see Sang Knight's expectant gaze when I raised my eyes. Right now, I can only drag him out until he gets better. Hearing this, the corners of Sang Knight's mouth rose slightly. He'll recover quickly. Frosty Cloud was very upset and angrily cursed in his heart that the snake was really cunning. Sang Knight, however, also said that as long as he could stay by my side. I turned my head to look at Bai Dai's face. I didn't expect Bai Dai to say, I'll do whatever I want. When I got Bai Dai's answer, I took out the contract ring. I held his hand and told him, you put on the ring. You are my family. Sun Ya stroked the ring on his ring finger with a serious look. He would never regret becoming my family. While they was sighing, it was pouring rain outside. What happened on this day, Sun Ya would never forget. He had a family. Sun Ya also had a mate. He could finally be with me. After the rain cleared, life seemed peaceful for the four of us. There is a dark crisis in our lives. Bai Dai folded his hands together and slowly lowered his head. The divine temple was in a very high position in the Beast City. Frosty Cloud's face was also gloomy when he heard this. All four divine ambassadors were killed. The Dark Moon Divine Hall won't receive news for a short time. During this time we have to prepare to meet the war. I was worried when I heard about the war. People will definitely be injured in the war. I have to gather herbs for backup. Frost Cloud worriedly reminded me that if we really fight, he told me to take the females and the cubs and hide inside the cellar. Bai Dai came up with an idea. We should dig the cellar bigger. Better to dig a secret passage, just in case of emergency. Hearing the White Emperor's suggestion, Frosty Cloud lifted his spirits. He would start working on it tomorrow. He would dig out the secret passage before the war. Sang Knight, who was sitting on the other side, watched as the two were actively discussing, and at the moment, Sang Knight couldn't interject a word and didn't know what to say. Sang Knight remembered his past. Since escaping the temple, he closed his heart. He thought he would never trust anyone in his life. My appearance was like a ray of light that illuminated his whole world. For the first time, he tasted the feeling of being trusted and protected by others. Sang Knight looked at me sitting across from him, but next to me were two people actively discussing ways to deal with the temple in the future. At this moment, I am listening, but at that moment, Sun Yu said sadly that the Divine Hall was the trouble they had caused. As long as he returns to the Divine Temple, nothing will happen next. I was furious to hear this and reached out to accuse him. You've already taken my contract ring with you, and you still want to run away? No way. The White Emperor stared at him with a gloomy face. The god envoys have all been killed. Even if you go back, the Dark Moon Divine Hall won't let us off the hook anymore. Frost Cloud also nodded in agreement. Things have come to this point. Your decision can no longer sway the situation, so you can only stay obediently. I hurriedly ran forward to hold Sang Knight's hand. We are a family. We must be united in times of crisis. No one can run away. Hearing this, Sang Knight's eyes dimmed and gently patted the back of my hand. Because we are a family, I must leave him behind. Sang Knight leaned down and looked at me. He can only rely on me in this life. No matter life or death, I can no longer get rid of him. Then he agreed. I was in a good mood when I heard his answer. I looked at him with my lovely eyes and looked at him lovingly. That's a good boy. We got an accurate answer from Sonia and it was almost time for lunch. Frosty Cloud went to get the sliced meat and vegetables with Bai Dai. At this moment, I was also very excited and planned to go and help cook. But just as I got up, before I could go far, I was pulled by Sanyi's wrist. I looked back at him in surprise, but his face was hard. It told me that it didn't steal the holy relics, and that it didn't kill the head priest either. Hearing Sanyi finish those words, I revealed an unbelievable expression. I didn't know I had gone through this before, but now I will protect him. It turns out that Release the Night was wrongly accused before, but no one wanted to believe him. Instead, those people wanted to burn him to death and he had to flee the temple. I'm worried thinking about the nervous and apprehensive look in Sanju's eyes. He's really afraid that I won't believe him. I have to find a way to coax him. I then gently rubbed his jaw. That's when I met his eyes, and my eyes revealed trust in him. I suddenly leaned down and kissed Sonia on the lips. I wanted to show him with a kiss that everyone in this family would trust him. We embraced the kiss for a few moments before pulling away a bit. My pouty look frowned to Sonia. I said seriously that I believed him. When Sonia came back to his senses, he slammed his arms around my waist. What I did to Sonia touched him deeply. Suddenly his body trembled and I felt warm liquid on my waist. I was in a bit of disbelief. Could this be Sonia's tears? I was reaching out and hugged her tightly, looking at Sonyu in my arms. My heart also felt sour for him. He must have suffered a lot before. At this time, Sang Knight's tears are still snapping and falling. I promise in my heart that I will give Sonyu a lot of happiness afterwards, so that he can't forget his painful past. On the other side, Frosty Cloud and Bai Dai were busy in the kitchen. Frosty Cloud's face was grim as he asked Bai Dai, "It was your idea to let slowly leave Sangyi behind, wasn't it?" After hearing this, Bai Dai's face instantly turned ugly, turning his head to stare at Frosty Cloud, and asked him, "Didn't you also agree to this idea, according to your temperament? If you don't accept it, you won't go and save him back." Being poked and prodded by Bai Dai, Frosty Cloud's face was a little ashamed, and he couldn't even say the words. Frost Cloud slowly lowered his head. He also thought about it, but I was pushed off the cliff by Livy missing. If it is not Sangyi, I may not be able to hold out. Although Frosty Cloud doesn't like snake beasts, but Sangyi is loyal to me. If the two of them can take care of something in the future, that guy can protect me. Bai Dai sneered, as the two of them coincidentally thought of a piece. Their starting point is the same, just to protect me. If it wasn't for that, there's no way White Emperor would have let me be with another beastman. Frost Cloud on the side was speechless at this expression on his face. 3 days later, the sun shines brightly outside the cave, and the leaves of the trees rustled in the wind. Sang Knight relied on his strong self-healing ability. He was already completely healed on the 3rd day. He walked barefoot outside the cave, the wind blowing his long, flowing hair. On the contrary, for me, because of excessive blood loss, I fell sick straight away. I was ordered to lie in bed and rest, not allowed to get out of bed until I was healed. Suddenly the system prompt sounded. I slowly opened my heavy eyes and looked at the system interface. The interface showed that the 438th system upgrade was successful. The Crystal Mall is now officially open. I excitedly sat up from the bed. "Hachi, you finally upgraded. It looks like the pixels are clearer. It's really good." The person on the system interface, hearing the name Hachi, is very angry. Really can't endure a little. What kind of name is Hachi? I looked at him seriously. "This is your nickname, otherwise call you dead bitch." This is also not good to hear, He reluctantly agreed to be Hachi. After we finished joking around, I revealed my ignorance and asked Hachi, "What's this mall you're talking about?" Hachi in the system interface slowly opened his hands. Hosts can use crystals to exchange goods in the mall. At present, you can only exchange the kinds of primary plant seeds, namely sunflower seeds and long bean seeds. I looked at the seeds on the system interface. I did not expect to see sunflower and long bean seeds in this world. Without saying a word, I directly redeemed 10 of each. I then clicked to confirm the exchange. In an instant, 2 large bags of seeds appeared in my arms. I really didn't expect that the system would exchange seeds so quickly. I then handed the seeds over to Frost Cloud. He was full of vigor and intended to plant the seeds in the fields, so I just left the matter entirely in his hands. But Frost Cloud didn't expect that Bai Dai was going to steal the work from himself. The matter of the vegetable field was told to be left to him and Sangyi, but Frost Cloud's task was to train. Frost Cloud's a little hesitant to hand the seeds to Sangyi, but Sangyi hastily took it and opened it to check. He showed a face that had never seen the seeds before. When I saw this, I explained to him that this is indeed a seed. When the seed blooms, it will be very pretty. We can enjoy it together then. Looking at the amicable trio, I sighed in my heart. Although Sonya is not good at communicating, Dai and Xuanyuan have both taken the initiative to help him adapt. This is what family is all about. I looked at the new seeds planted in the ground that had already blossomed, but I wondered when the new seeds would bear fruit. The next morning the sun shone directly into the cave, filling the entire cave with a smell of sunshine. It was the day of the market again. In the bazaar, the beasts swarmed in, running frantically as if they were scrambling for special offers. I was surprised to see the same. I didn't expect so many orcs to come. I can't even keep myself busy here. All the orcs were frantically scrambling for the vegetables in my stall. One moment he wanted to buy here, the next moment he wanted to buy there. The whole scene was chaotic. I was squeezed by the beasts buying vegetables. I couldn't breathe. There was no order at all. It was really irritating. After a while, the beasts quarreled over the order of the groceries. No one was letting anyone in. They all wanted me to sell the food to themselves first. Suddenly, White Emperor appeared behind me, grasping my slender shoulders with his strong hands and protecting me in his arms. Dai shouted with a grim face, "Shut up! There's no order at all. Do you want to buy food or not? If you keep arguing, we won't sell any more food." Along with the White Emperor's voice, there was a tiger's cry, which was the White Emperor's majesty in front of them. The beasts, who were still in chaos before, instantly wimped out when they heard the tiger's cry. Not one of them dared to come up and make a scene. The whole scene was instantly silent. The beasts obediently lined up. This time they stood there in a very orderly manner, waiting to buy food. Dai then warned them that anyone who dared to cut the queue will make trouble. He wouldn't mind adding an extra meat dish to today's dinner. This sense of oppression caused the beasts to instantly panic, and they all lined up quietly. They didn't dare to say a word more, much less cut in line or make trouble. At this time, a little white rabbit at the back of the queue raised its hand and shouted, letting her buy first. The beasts who heard this were all very surprised. Time went by little, and there were more and more people at my stall. Some of them looked at the long queue and discussed it. The beastmen who weren't there in the queue looked at the long queue and were puzzled. Why is this queue so long? What are they doing? A dark-skinned orc squeezed in. The orcs in the serious queue were very dissatisfied with him and voiced to stop him from cutting in the queue. The orc was not impressed and felt that what he was doing was not wrong. He grimaced and threatened the queuing orcs from above. When Sand Knight arrived and saw this scene, he threw the queue jumper out with a horizontal tail sweep. With a grim face, he warns him not to jump the queue. I saw that the food on the stall was almost gone. I then told Wei that I was going to go to the stone house and bring out some more vegetables. When I walked into the stone house, I raised my hand and turned the ring on my hand. Then I opened the 4-inch space. From within a space fell out a bunch of fresh vegetables that we had planted together and picked together when they were ripe. I held a basket of apples and walked out from the stone house, excitedly shouting, "By Dai, vegetables and fruits have come." Dai looked at me with a worried face. From the stone house, the two of them carried out many fresh vegetables and fruits and placed them on the stall. The orcs were very excited to see these. Frosty Cloud was struggling to move the vegetables from the stone house, looking at the beastmen who came to buy the vegetables and messed up again. He directly shouted, "Come one by one." At this time, Sang Knight stood at the side of the queue, observing the beastmen in the queue. As long as one of them dared to cut in the queue, he would kill that person on the other side. Dai was warping vegetables inside the stone house. He sorted them out one by one and stacked them on top of each other. Half a day later, all those vegetables they had moved out were sold out, leaving only empty baskets scattered on the stalls. I raised my hand and wiped the sweat from my face, sighing in my heart. It was almost like being robbed. Luckily, the harvest of herbs and crystals was more this time around. Why he had been working all day, but it was too tiring to do it on his own like this. So he thought of a way to solve the current problem. It's that we can't pay a reward and then come and hire someone to help with the work, so that it's an employment relationship between us and things will be much simpler. Frosty Cloud couldn't stop nodding at his proposal. Why don't we buy all the vegetable plots planted by the rocky male beasts, and then ask them to help with the planting? The remuneration can be billed to them. I couldn't help but sigh at these words. Mentioning pre-hired helpers, Dai thought of acquiring the land. He's too good at this. If he were to put it in the modern world, he would definitely be a super treacherous businessman. I looked at him in shock and couldn't help but imagine. Dai didn't even realize how good he was, and asked me, "What do you think?" I hastily nodded my head, very much in agreement. Really can't ignore the intelligence of the works in this world. Seeing that everyone thought it was good, we decided on a plan, so let's implement it like this first. The plan went smoothly, and the acquisition of the land was discussed happily, with everyone enjoying themselves and benefiting from each other. I was also patiently teaching the other orcs, teaching them how to plant seeds and vegetables, and the days were getting better and better. As time went by, the vegetable seedlings in the ground grew impressively, and they grew a great deal taller, so I thought that they would soon bear fruit. But at that moment, an accident suddenly happened. The beasts ran to my yard in a panic, looking very aggrieved. I saw that they were all bruised and swollen, and their faces and bodies were also injured. They looked like they had been beaten up by someone, and some of them were crying with sadness. I saw this miserable state of them. The face could not help but utterly up, surprised and open-mouthed, anxiously asked, "You were bullied by who?" The orcs uttered shocking words. They complained in unison, "Beaten by the plants and vegetables." I incredibly back a few steps. How is this possible? But they were still talking. Just now when we were working in the field, those sunflowers were spitting things at us, hitting people with special pains. A lot of people's faces were swollen, and the long beanstalks would suddenly explode whenever someone got close, blowing holes in their clothes. The sunflower and the long beanstalk are really horrible. You've got to do something about it. I didn't even think it would get to this point, and was going to go to the ground to check it out. Couldn't help but think suspiciously. The exchange seeds from them all shouldn't be a problem. Right, the sunflowers in the vegetable field were facing the sun and swaying warmly. I couldn't help but touch the beanstalks on the bamboo poles, but they were growing well and looked normal. There were no incidents of people being beaten up, and this sunflower is 2 meters high. Can't even reach it. So I tentatively reached out my hand and hopped around to touch it. White Emperor noticed this situation, so he hurriedly approached me and thoughtfully reached out his hand to touch the sunflower. "Let me help you." But when he was about to touch the sunflower violently dodged back, as if it was conscious. I was shocked by this, but the sunflower had already started to spit out sunflower seeds, which were hard and small, very powerful. Seeing this scene, Bai dodged fiercely to avoid it, and then pulled me into his arms and turned his back, blocking the attack of these small sunflower seeds. After a while, the sunflower stopped attacking. It actually seemed like it had consciousness. It also paused for a while. The other ones didn't have this phenomenon yet. I was surprised to look at the sunflower not far away, panicked and thought, "What the hell is this?" The sunflower seeds I planted can actually hit people. Seeing that the current situation was safe, Bai let go of the person in his arms and tentatively asked me, "Then should we try again? Those long beanstalks?" I quickly nodded. So White Emperor picked up a stone from the ground, aiming at the long beanstalks. He violently threw it towards them. Unexpectedly, these long beanstalks received the attack, as if they had come to life, and violently exploded their outer skin, knocking the stone away and revealing the seeds inside. I looked at the stone flying far away, could not help the shock in my heart. Some speechless thought, "This is reasonable," said after the founding of the country cannot become a spirited. The beasts also came with us, depicted in colorful pictures. These plants are like crazy, a little close to hit people, especially fierce. I took out the golden willow flower and apologized to everyone. I hadn't thought it through properly. After crushing it and mixing it with water and applying it on the body, I then decided to think of other countermeasures. I have to give everyone a good explanation. Then I came to a deserted place outside the cave. Seeing no one around, I called out to the system Hachi and decided to ask what was going on. Hachi heard the summons and instantly appeared in front of me. His mechanical-filled voice appeared in his ears and said it with a serious expression. I inquired, "How could the seeds you asked me to exchange from them all this time hurt people? What the hell is going on here?" Xiao Hachi opened his mouth to explain. "They are all mutated seeds. After they grow up, of course they are a little special, but I can guarantee that they are all non-toxic and edible." I'm speechless. No matter if they are poisonous or not, they will be attacked as long as they are near. This is a serious problem that must be solved. Seeing this, Hachi had to say the way. "These plants are very good to get along with. As long as they are gentle to them, they will actively send their own fruit." I asked incredulously, "Is this true?" Hachi said, "The second rule of the system manual is that you can't lie." I couldn't help but bow my head in deep thought for a while, clenching my fist with a serious expression, and murmured, "As long as it's a little more gentle." Then I smiled tentatively. "That's how gentle it is." Then returned to the cave and hurriedly told everyone the news. Frosty Cloud tugged the corner of his mouth breathlessly. "Does gentle mean wagging the tail?" I explained to him that it should mean softly soothing them. Same Night also heard this from the side. He only stood up. Sin slowly said so. He planned to step in and touch these things. He quickly changed back to his original body and became a huge python. He spat out his snake's letters and slid over to a short distance away, quickly arriving in front of the sunflower. Using his water skill, he spat out a column of water from his mouth, with a ham la la sound, and watered them himself. Sunflowers like to feel his good intentions. Very comfortable stretch, with the wind easily swaying their own branches and leaves. Long ago, he hid behind a tree not far away, observing the situation there. The beasts were there discussing in amazement, and it looked like they were quite happy about it. Other orc, who had been badly beaten, didn't quite believe it. How could it be seen? And watched as Sonya finished watering and had transformed back into his original body. Then tentatively walked forward, came to the sunflower bush, reached out his hand to try the effect, gently stroking their branches and leaves. I looked at the scene not far away. My heart couldn't help but clench, nervously hiding behind the bushes, but not without some worry, looking at Sangyo. Then the next second, the sunflower actually took the initiative, shaking their big head, pull down a large pile of sunflower seeds. Like a gift, it shook down a large pile and gave it to Sangyi. Those orcs who were beaten before hid behind the tree, surprised to think that this is also good. Sangyi walked towards me with an expressionless face, not forgetting to grab a big bunch of sunflower seeds from the ground and hugged it over to comfort me. It's okay now. I was also very surprised to see this scene. Actually really need to coax and touch to be good. So I hurriedly came forward and stroked the leaves of the sunflower, very happy to go up and take the initiative to stick. The sunflowers even lowered their heads to come closer, but also very shy look. I couldn't help but shake my fist to cheer myself up, and thought in my heart, these mutant plants are really magical, and they have their own personalities. In the hot sunny afternoon, I was in this sunflower field, and I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. It's really just like a human being. It's so cute. In a short time, Sonya had already collected a bunch of sunflower seeds. He weighed the big bag in his hand a few times, and planned to go to see the long bean corner. He came to the garden of long beans, raised his hand and looked at them tenderly, gently stroked and touched them, and then after a while, the long bean curd is very much like Saint Night, happily shaking off their fruits, quickly fell down by itself, accumulated into a small hill mound. I was very happy to hold the sunflower seeds. It turns out that as long as it is approached with kindness, it is very good. It looks so well behaved like this. At this point, we can increase the planting of sunflowers and long beans. It's a good weapon against foreign enemies. I instantly agreed with the blessed spirit. It's a good idea. When the enemy comes, the sunflower seeds can be used like machine guns to beat people up, and the long bean stalks can be used to warn the orcs. As long as there is an enemy approaching, it will crackle and explode. I immediately clenched my fist and decided on this plan. So it's decided. Then we'll plant more sunflowers and long beans in the precautionary area. Right. The next morning, the sun has just revealed the mountain. Shining warm sunshine, playing on the human body is very comfortable. I came to the hidden warehouse, carrying a few sacks, and gently called out to Xiao Hachi, who soon appeared in front of me. So I hurriedly walked up. These sacks of colorless crystals, exchanged for sunflower and long bean seeds. This is all my savings. Hachi followed the instructions, checked how many crystals there were, and exchanged them for seeds. I clicked to confirm the exchange and the transaction was complete. I held the seeds in my arms and couldn't help but sigh sadly. Things in the mall are so expensive. The crystals that I had worked so hard to earn were all gone. I become a complete pauper. At this moment, a beam of light suddenly hit my face. I twisted my head in surprise and looked up, surveying the cave entrance above me, sighing. I opened my mouth. I want more crystals so badly. I'll have to keep up the good work. They reworked the plan and the beasts did as they were told. For days on end in the precautionary zone, diligently sowing these seeds into the ground, and at my behest, sunflowers and long bean curls have long been sown around the Rocky Mountains, and the growth has been very promising. After a few more quiet days, the birds fluttered their wings and flew over the top of the mountain. A very peaceful scene. The cave was bustling with activity, and frosty cloud shouts could be heard from a distance. We're back from the hunt. Then threw a cow and a chicken on the ground. He led the clanning from outside, winking happily at me. He seemed to have harvested a lot of prey and kept rubbing his stomach, saying he was hungry. I smiled and looked back at him, saying soothingly that the food would be ready soon, and then took a basket of green vegetables and held it in my arms. Soon a big table was ready. There was braised fish, green vegetables and vegetable soup, and surprisingly there were also a lot of kebabs. This is too sumptuous, right? Frosty Cloud told me about the recent situation. Now sunflowers and beanstalks can be used as peripheral guards and warning tools. I listened attentively. I added on the side. Now is the time when animals and beasts are active. These may not be enough. He can't help but be a little worried. Hearing this, I thought carefully and set the idea in my mind, proposing that it would be better to make a few traps to try it out. The three people present, they all stood up in amazement, as if they were hearing this word for the first time, and didn't quite understand what a trap was, so I gave them a serious explanation. Very simple. It is to dig a big pit covered with a thin layer of grass and leaves, so that people cannot see that there is a pit underground. Just need to wait for the beasts or invading orcs to step over. They will fall down. Several people heard this, instantly like a lake filling the roof. Bai Dai didn't mince words as he praised. This sounds great and it can be used to catch prey. We can try it tomorrow. A few days later, Frost Cloud led the Rock Wolf clan to set up the trap. They used their claws to quickly run out a large pit. Then they carefully laid a layer of branches on top to hide it and lay it over the hole. It was seamless. Then as a wild beast passed by, Whitey attacked it, and the beast was instantly enraged and roared in anger as it chased after him. Bai Dai had already prepared for this and led it towards the trap. He grabbed the branch upwards and the beast fell into the trap. The beast was smashed and quickly fainted. The clansmen looked down into the big hole and cheered in amazement. With this we can protect our Rocky Mountain. The females and cubs. Frost Cloud quickly gave the order. Let's quickly dig a little more. Bai Dai had an excellent idea in his mind. Insert some sharp wooden thorns at the bottom of the pit and smear them with venom, so the effect can definitely be better. Frosty Cloud heard this idea from him on the side, and looked at him with a vegetable face. He couldn't help but spit out in his heart, "This is too dark-hearted, right?" But then Sang Knight, who was on the side, spoke with an expressionless face. "I can't provide the venom." Frosty Cloud shook his fist in excitement when he heard this news. Afterwards, Frost Cloud led the male beasts to the bottom of the pit, inserted wooden spikes coated with venom, each sharp and incomparable. Once again improved the trap. Frost Cloud and the clansmen holding arms looking at the trap cannot help but be proud of the smile. This foot stepped on either dead or disabled. When I saw it, I carefully made a small wooden stick as a label, reminding them not to step on any of these marked places. Then turned his head and smiled and spoke to the coyotes. "Fallen will die, oh!" The coyotes heard this fearful whimpering, and at this time appeared a pair of blood-red wings. The person is the Blood Plume. He stood on a high mountain, overlooking the following orc a series of operations, gently smiling at the bottom. "Want to send you a big gift, and I am at this time ignorant and unaware, is playing happily with the young cubs in the herd. Soon to the late night, the White Emperor has long fallen into a deep sleep. Frost Cloud also sleeps very well. Do not know what beautiful dream, drooling out of the mouth. At this time, I also closed my eyes tightly and fell into a deep sleep. The night was peaceful and quiet. On the other hand, Sang Knight suddenly opened his eyes violently and woke up with a start. His pupils were dilating. He seemed to have sensed something. He quickly sat up. The expression on his face was shocked. He was keenly aware that there was actually the aura of a fellow clan member, and it was in the vicinity. The boulders above rolled down crazily, and a python flashed past quickly underground. It turned out to be Sang Knight's main body that was slipping and sliding. He followed his scent to the side of the swamp, and the situation in front of him shocked him greatly, so he slid his huge body into the thick forest to get a closer look. Sang Knight's little head quietly probed out. For a moment the scene ahead was actually very spectacular. There were many snake beasts on the other side of the marshland. They actually each wore night clothes in order not to hide their faces, sprouting those red eyes and long snake letters. Singin changed into his human form and stared dead ahead with his deep eyes. The man was the same as the portrait slowly drew. He was the Machin that several clans were after. The man was still quietly explaining to the snake beasts. Sang Knight instantly dripping sized beads of sweat. There was only one wolf clan nearby. They would soon be looking for the Rocky Mountain. We had to hurry back to ventilate the situation. Only after seeing him slipping away with extremely brisk movements, Machin suddenly jerked his head back to look at but there was no sign of anything behind him, and from the darkness of the forest there was no visible edge, and it was utterly impossible to find anything in the Machin exceptionally believed in their own intuition. So he carefully sniffed with his nose. "I did not think it was the scent of the sinner. You guys quickly go after the..." Countless snake beasts were out in force, and several swish sounds appeared in the silent jungle. Song Yu frowned a little panicked. Ahead should be the trap. At this moment a sudden planned search inside him. It so happened that several snake beasts had already rushed over and ordered in a voice that they thought was very majestic, "Brothers, catch him for me." Sang Knight's gaze suddenly frowned, and a few strands of hair drifted down between his eyebrows. He dodged with the intention of quickly circling away. The red eyes of the snake beast behind him lasered even more. "Catch him! Don't let him get away!" The front was the first to launch a few snake beasts to strike, but the moment they paddled past, their bodies unexpectedly began to fall involuntarily. What they didn't expect was that there were long, sharp thorns at the bottom of the swamp, which pierced directly into them with a poof. After they stepped into the swamp, his companions fell into the swamp one after another, and the scene was surprisingly chaotic. Sang Yeo took the opportunity to slide into the forest, completely ignoring the howls of the people behind her. The rest of the serpents opened their fangs. Their eyes gleamed as they stared straight ahead. The rest of you give chase. But this dense forest would not allow them to find it very quickly, and almost only the sound of the snake's letters spitting out. At this point, the sunflower bush they were in actually went crazy and started attacking them. Countless small sunflower seeds pierced into the snake beast's torso, and that kind of drilling pain was too much for the snake to bear at all. Huge swathes of sunflowers D80 spewed out, seeming to have an air of destruction with them. The serpent beasts almost quickly hugged each other, their sharp fangs almost a show, and all that was left in their minds was a grimacing howl. Ma Qing walked forward quietly with his robes on, and then probed a piece of the snake beast corpse inside the cave, its body completely becoming abnormally hard. He was secretly indignant to the point where his eyes were red, and the corner of his mouth violently hooked up with a touch of mockery. It was really a bunch of losers. At that moment, on a boulder hill in the distance, the little orc heard a crackling sound coming from underneath, and his expression suddenly became condensed. He suddenly stood up and roared towards the sky. Behind him, he even split into a werewolf body. Long Bingpo called the police. Enemy attack! Ma Qing stood frowning below, the constant howling of wolves ringing in her ears. He very cautiously instructed the serpentine beast on the side to quickly shout them all back. Prepare flints and dry wood. We'll set fire to the mountain. At this moment, Sang Night came into the cave with a staggering pace. Frost Cloud noticed him almost instantly. Was he in some kind of danger? Sang Night did not dare to relax in the slightest, and reported to him that the Dark Moon Divine Hall's people had come. There were more than 200 orcs. Frost Cloud closed his mouth tightly at once, his deep pupils hinting at his shock, so the energy around him suddenly increased, and the tips of his ears stood straight up. He loudly rallied the orcs behind him, about to prepare for battle. Frost Cloud led the orcs to the side of the rocky hill, some holding their torches high, while others accompanied the clan leader to explore the. I didn't expect the little orc to have a moment's surprise that they were chopping down a tree. What was this about? The White Emperor suddenly appeared beside them, and spoke very coldly and seriously, presumably wanting to set fire to the mountain. The White Tiger has excellent night vision at night, so it was easy to see that the mastermind was Ma Qing. Ma Qing has a small tattoo on his face and a relaxed, finger-wagging, mouth-wagging look on his face. The red light of his eyes had dissipated, replaced by a hollow blackness. This method should have been thought up by Ma Qing. The duo immediately launched a series of brainstorming sessions. After all, Ma Qing wouldn't appear here without a reason. Frost Cloud snapped his mouth open and exclaimed, "It couldn't be that from the very beginning." Ma Qing was in league with the Dark Moon Divine Hall. For his part, Bai Dai nodded approvingly. The hemp grain below seemed to sense the sight and looked upwards with a big grin. Sure enough, there were a few familiar faces up there, and for a moment, the two groups of people looked at each other. The red light within Ma Qing's eyes suddenly flashed, and the corners of his mouth slightly hooked into an evil smile. Old friends. I'm back again. Frosty Cloud and Bai Dai both looked disgusted at the same time. From the moment they saw him, it seemed that the air around them had become dirty, only to see Bai Dai turn away with incomparable seriousness. You guys hold the fort here. I'm going to go look for people. Frost Cloud didn't seem to understand what that meant. The White Emperor had to answer his doubts once again by going to the top of the mountain to get help from the Feather Clan. Whitey quickly made his way to the side of the rocky mountain, followed by a few easy jumps. Reaching the top of the mountain in exactly an instant, all the people of the Feather Clan's breathing became extremely light, as they carefully reported to Blood Plume. The orcs at the bottom of the mountain are coming up. He looked at Bai Dai with an unkind gaze. What business do you have with us here? Cacti explains that there are people at the bottom of the mountain who want to prevent the fire from burning the mountain. You can either leave quickly or come with us to kill the enemy. Blood Plume's deep eyes were slightly stagnant, and the hair on his forehead was ruffled a bit. His magnetic bass voice slowly rang out, and the mountain came down to the. For his part, the White Emperor secretly sized him up, seemingly plotting their abilities. At the bottom of the mountain were the divine ambassadors and escorts of the Dark Moon Divine Temple. Blood Plume and the other clansmen were incredibly surprised. We've already hit here. Why can't we still run into the Dark Moon Divine Hall's people? When the White Emperor heard this, he understood that the Feather Clan had a problem with the Dark Moon Divine Hall. Blood Plume hung his head magnificently and delicately, wanting us to help kill the enemy. You guys have to show some proper sincerity at some point. He doesn't care about sincerity. He just wants to see what he wants. Blood Plume was indeed a decisive person, and his tone was ghostly and sent out in all directions I want that little female of yours. The White Emperor's eyes snapped open, and his gentle breathing seemed to stutter a bit. The Feather Clan patriarch, Shen Yan, walked over in displeasure, and his tone actually carried a million accusations. What the hell are you talking about? Blood Plume. By this time, the White Emperor had returned to his senses and lightly expressed his refusal to them. He then intended to turn around and leave. Shen Yan, on the other hand, clenched his fists in indignation at the side. Why did you say such words? Blood Plume suddenly avoided the topic, his eyes looking slyly at the opposite patriarch. The Dark Moon Divine Hall's people were at the foot of the mountain. Do we fight on, or do we continue to run away like last time? Give us a positive answer. Matriarch! Shen Yan instantly glanced his head to the side. It's better to look at the situation first. If the Rock Wolves can't beat them, it's not too late for us to strike again. After all, that it still says that if we can stay out of war, then we should try not to go to war. A touch of sadness flashed across Blood Plume's expression. The Feather Clan that once dominated the skies was now reduced to hiding at home and watching. It was really sad. He was not answering any of the patriarch's questions, and went alone to the foot of the mountain to investigate them. The serpentine beast hiding behind the tree spat out its snake letters, and looked ahead to await the danger. Frost Cloud and the rest of the crowd had transformed into their original bodies, and raised their robust limbs to attack them. As if encouraged, the cold light in the werewolf's eyes suddenly enlarged. They took a bite at the snake beast's torso, while the snake beast, not to be outdone, opened its own bloody mouth to try to strike back. But their thick bodies were so heavy that the wolves had the upper hand for a while. Frost Cloud's little paw stepped on the ground, and it actually revealed a strange rune at that moment. Staying Night illuminated as a half-human, half-beast form, which was undoubtedly his peak moment. Frost Cloud, on the other hand, came over with an air of aggression. The serpent beasts on the other side were quickly flouncing, and their bodies could no longer move at all. This moment was the best time for them to launch. Sure enough, it was the turn of the imposing Sand Knight to strike, and the thick snake tail curled very hard and tight. Only a click was heard, and they were instantly squeezed out of their bodies. Sang Yu wouldn't be soft on these people at all. It seemed that only by killing them would she be able to release the resentment within her heart. Whitey came to his support in haste, but the sight before him made his anger flare. Because that's my vegetable patch. He exploded with energy almost at that instant, and the zipping electric current around his body rushed at them. The snake beast on the opposite side suffering even more. The remaining serpent beasts didn't dare to act rashly. Only the chirping coming from above made their hearts palpitate. Shen Yan carefully hovered above, surveying the wolf clan that was caught up in the fight. Bloodling suddenly called out Shen Yan softly, prompting the patriarch's gaze to look at himself. And only then did he voice the unwillingness in his heart. We've already lost our home out of fear, and now we're going to lose the last vestige of our dignity as the feathered ones out of fear. Shen Yan gritted his teeth and didn't dare to say anything. His back was sweating a little from resentment. His fists, on the other hand, clenched quietly as his body began to shake with anger. He clearly remembered his father's teaching that we are children of the god of the sky, and that as long as we are in the sky, we have nothing to fear. Shen Yan closed his eyes in pain. When father sees me now, he will be incredibly disappointed. Right. Blood Plume lifted his blood-red wings and quickly flew downwards. As far as the eye could see, there was a clamor. The bottom of the rocky mountain was already on fire, and the trees around it were crackling. Looks like they're burning the mountain. He ignored the patriarch, who was buried in pain, and his blood-red eyes suddenly narrowed in displeasure. This is our last chance. Only to see him instantly transform into his own body, his entire body filled with that noble and bright blood-red color. A few rays of cold light lit up in his eyes. He came to the top of the serpent beast assemblage, and his pointed mouth gave them a disdainful cry of. Immediately after the snakes and beasts were actually set on fire, they could only frantically roll on the ground. Ma Qing gritted his teeth and stared dead above. It was actually the blood-red divine vulture. But how could the divine vulture appear here? Shen Yan fiercely looked down to the melee below. His tone was very raw as he called out to the clan to bite his teeth. He looked sternly at the clan behind him. Remember why we had to cross the mountains and migrate all the way here. Of course Bite knows what it's for, because our homes have been destroyed by the monsters released by the Dark Moon Shrine. Shen Yan suddenly flickered the wings behind his chi, then seriously reminded his clan, the people of the Dark Moon Divine Hall are at the bottom of the mountain. The time for revenge has come. At this time, his body's energy quickly surged, and his original form of an orc actually appeared behind him. All male beasts listen to my orders. Defend our home and kill all our enemies. The clansmen behind them were even more unwilling to lag behind, so they all transformed into their own bodies and rushed out, defend your home and kill your enemies. Shen Yan, as the patriarch, led the way. In fact, just as his father said, in heaven, we are just fearless.